Hey, this time we're using the starting soon scene and not the ending now or
Hey,
whatever.
hey, I haven't done that in a while, okay? It's probably been at least 2 months since we had it actually legitimately on there. The only technical snafu we had this time was I switched it over right in the middle of an epic portion of the song. So, that's what it is. In case you're curious, just to be on brand and everything, that music was brought to you by Pretzel. We are not sponsored by Pretzel in any way, but we do have a special guest today who happens to be Pretzel counsel, meaning he's the lawyer for Pretzel. But before we get into that and the introductions, thank you all for being here and welcome back to Your Brand, Your Business. It's been a while. It's been, what, a month and a half?
Something like that, man.
Yeah. It's been
my fault.
Been a busy summer. I mean, during the, like I mentioned,
Tyler agrees with us. Look, Tyler agrees with us. It's like he's got the microphone right on his Adam's apple, and we're not sure what he did.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was adjusting my audio stuff earlier, but I didn't. So that's the second technical snafu that we have, because I don't think I changed anything in with my mic, but it is what it is, I guess. I don't know.
All right, we got Batman.
If you guys can figure out how to make it sound like I'm going through puberty again, then just let me know in chat, right? So just post it in there somewhere. Like, how do I raise the tone or the depth of my voice, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna blame it on Galen too. Okay,
fair enough.
But as I mentioned, we went on summer break, as much of a summer break as possible. A lot of exciting things happened. That was my first Father's Day last month. Also, Galen had a lot of things going on. I think he had. You had what?
Yeah, I can list it.
Sure.
My wife and I had been together for 10 years, so we took a 10-year trip, which dovetailed straight into my brother's wedding. I got back from my brother's wedding, and the next day left for E3. E3, I stayed that extra Friday to take some clients to, I mean, I'm near LA, but stayed downtown to take some clients on a really, really cool distillery tour that I found in LA that is super cool. It involves a boat ride and a carousel ride. And then the next day was my sister's graduation from college. And then we went with her family because they own a winery. Not her family, her boyfriend's family. Her family, my family. Her boyfriend's family owns a winery. So we went up to chill with them to celebrate. And then I came back. And then I had another conference. And now I'm finally home. I'm finally home.
Home is good, right?
Yeah.
Home is good. And actually, it's going to be a very exciting time. I can't hold it in because I'm just going to say it anyway. So I hope you don't mind, Noah. But our good friend here, Noah, is getting married next month. Yeah. So he's about to go through all of that stuff. Fun stuff
By next month, Joe means 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I get
2.5, something like that.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Soon you're going to be at Galen's stage, and then Galen's going to be at my stage. So, then you'll be the married one, and Galen will be the married one with the newborn, and then I get to be the one laughing at Galen's lack of sleep.
Don't tell my wife that, yeah. So don't tell my wife that.
Yeah.
Joel, you're making yourself sound like the Crypt Keeper, man.
All right, I'm going to look up Blue Yeti manual just to figure out why I'm doing this James Earl Jones stuff, okay? Actually, I'll do that.
People pay extra for that normally.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of services you normally employ, but I don't know anything about those type of services there, Galen. All right, but
I can feel it tickling in my chest and elsewhere.
Okay, I'm just going to keep the deep voice for now while I do the disclaimer portion. At least that'll serve some purpose during the disclaimer portion. But yes, this is Your Brand, Your Business. This is the show that Galen and I co-host here on the StreamerSquare channel about for content creators, all right, and the Twitch community overall. This show is to help you guys with your business and legal issues. So if you haven't figured it out already, you guys are all business owners, whether that was accidental or that was intentional. It's your job and your responsibility, not Twitch's, not anyone else's, to make sure that you're doing this properly. Because when the IRS comes knocking, or the FTC comes knocking, or the USPTO for today's episode comes knocking, they won't care if you said, well, everybody else on Twitch is doing it, right? No, they'll just care about what the actual enforcement was. And we'll explain that in a little bit. But before we get into that, I'm a lawyer. Noah's a lawyer. Galen's a financial planner, right? We're all professionals. We all have the law school loans and the student loans to show it, right? Yeah. But that doesn't mean we're your professionals, right? Our opinions are our own. They don't represent Twitch. They don't represent StreamerSquare, and they don't represent Pretzel. and they may be professional opinions, but they're not opinions that we are giving to you as part of an attorney-client relationship or a financial planner-client relationship. So these are all given for general educational purposes. And now that we got that disclaimer out of the way, I'm going to figure out how to go through puberty again. Right. So while we're doing that, though, why don't we talk a little bit about today's topic, which is going to be DMCA, or specifically the IP law copyright issues that are they're inherent in content creation, right? So this is something that you can avoid. We've talked about liability shields before when we did LLC issues and whatnot. There aren't a whole lot of like slip and fall issues or risks that you have as a streamer. No one's going to be coming to your door, knocking, and then going into your house, and all of a sudden they're slipping and falling and just suing you for a broken ankle, right? However, it could happen. But it is very unlikely. What is much more likely is that you're going to run into an issue with intellectual property. And that is why we brought on our esteemed colleague Noah. Which way am I pointing? Not that way, this way. Esteemed colleague Noah to discuss intellectual property. He has a wonderful article that he wrote as part of Pretzel Council, which we will go ahead and link in chat. But in the meantime, Noah, Galen, you guys take it away. I'll figure out the voice issues.
Sounds good. So my job, since I am the non-lawyer in this group, is to, as far as I can tell, ask the questions that we all should have, because this isn't my background either. So first thing I'll say is part of the reason that we're doing this topic, and it's, probably week and a half later than whenever all the shit was going down earlier, but there have been waves of DMCA takedowns, and there was one recently where some fairly prominent streamers got a 24-hour or more ban for using music that they did not own. Some of them were arguing things along the lines of, well, it was a song request that someone put in or something like that. And yet they still got banned. So we thought it would be a good thing to talk about because, as Joel pointed out, in a business where you are presumably the only person working in it, because that's true of the vast, vast, vast majority of streamers, you are responsible for making sure you get all this shit right. And it's a lot of stuff. And it's not necessarily like fun to think about or easy or anything like that. So we want to give you some of the tools to help you prep for that. So I'd say first, what is intellectual property, Noah?
Oh, goodness.
I want to start with a really small question, narrow, pointed.
Yeah, and we'll expand upon it. So intellectual property is your intangible property rights. It's your way of protecting what you create. So you've got your trademark, copyright, trade secret, and then you've also got patent. I know that most commonly in terms of your brand, your business, you're going to hear more about trademark, because trademark is what goes into protecting your brand. Boom, there you go. Your brand, your business. So trademarks can be logos, they can be your names, they can be your slogans, anything that people use to associate you as the source of a good or a service. You've also got copyright, and so you can get copyright on works of creative expression. So for instance, if you write a book, you can get a copyright on it. If you take a photograph, you can get a copyright on that photograph. And then with copyright, you have derivative rights that come from it. So think of trademark as this is the source of goods. Think of copyright as this is a creative thing that I have made. It's an expression of a creative idea I have, and there's a bundle of rights that go with your copyright. And then you've got trade secret, which is basically, this is my secret sauce, and I don't tell anybody how to make it except for my children, and I pass it on, and it's protected by non-disclosure agreements.
The KFC recipe and such.
Exactly, it's locked in a vault. And then you've got patent, which is, you can have patent. Disclaimer, I don't really work with patent that much. It's kind of like in that scene in The Lion King where, that's the darkness over there. Everything the light touches is trademark, copyright, and trade secret from me.
Yes.
And patent is that dark area. We don't go there.
And to be fair, there's not going to be a whole lot of patent issues in gaming in general, right? We're not even talking about just content creation, but we're talking about now the whole gaming industry. I know I think there was an article recently that Overwatch is trying to patent its play of the game system or the play of the game feature.
Cool.
But I mean, generally speaking, and I'm not a patent lawyer either. I'm not part of the patent bar. There are a lot of issues and complications when it comes to trying to patent software. That's why you get the game clones, right? That's why you have,
Right.
Once PUBG came out, everybody and their mother was trying to make a knockoff PUBG, right? Now that Fortnite
Which was
doing
itself a knockoff.
Yeah, now that Fortnite is doing gangbusters, everyone is trying to make a Fortnite knockoff too. So those are issues that are part of IP law that are let's call them, and I don't know if you use these terms, Noah, but let's call them hard IP versus soft IP.
Yeah, I use those.
Right.
That's a good way to do it.
Hard IP is stuff that we're talking about patents, and these are guys that get your mind out of the gutter, Galen. Man, first you start with the voice stuff, then you start with the secret sauce stuff, and now you're laughing at this stuff.
I wasn't gonna go there, but I'm proud that he did.
I just see him giggling off on the side of the screen, and then and now I immediately knew what he was laughing about. Damn it, Galen. Anyway, back to. I don't even want to use those terms anymore because of you. Okay, back to hard IP, which is the stuff that you need to be part of a patent law for, or patent law bar, and that's like a lot of guys that went into law school. Before their law school, they had like a STEM background, right? So that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is soft IP because that is the copyrights and the trademarks. And to be frank, there's actually a lot of, like, once you get to be a certain size within streaming, then that is when you need to consider trademark and stuff like that. And Noah will be happy to go into that and kind of talk about it a little bit more.
I'm sorry. I've got it under control now, but it took some effort.
Listen, this is why we're live. This is live.
Yeah, right? This is what you love about Twitch, the live part of it, where you get to don't see the polished professionalism that I display everywhere else. Instead, the raw side of me.
Yeah.
Polished professionalism. That's us wearing T-shirts.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, but so the focus and when it comes to IP law, this is stuff that we've talked about before. It's that as a content creator, you're both a user and a creator, right? You consume other people's IP. At the same time, you also use and create your own IP. So you have to be aware of both sides of that coin. What protections do you have against somebody else ripping off your brand? What do you need to be concerned about you potentially infringing upon somebody else's IP? So that's the groundwork that we're trying to set here today. And I don't know if the voice is still the same thing.
Your voice is fixed.
It is?
You sound like you again.
Okay. All I did was unplug it. So maybe that's all I needed to do.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Yeah. Okay.
Good reference.
Get out of here, man. I'm about to.
Sorry, that's IT, not IP. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm totally confused.
All right. So, with that said, now that we kind of talked a little bit about IP law, now we're getting into why it's important. We mentioned the protections for you and the protections for the owners. What else is kind of, what do the vast majority of content creators have to be aware about when it comes to IP?
I would say that the vast majority that content creation for people on Twitch, Mixer, whatever, comes, the two parts that they really need to focus on is trademark and copyright.
Yes.
And today we're mainly going to focus on copyright, because there is the very act of creating content means that you have to deal with copyright. Trademark, it's, as I said before, it's your brand, so you just need to protect your brand. But copyright is that area where it's really easy to step on somebody's toes, especially since by its nature, what we do as a community is play video games that someone has a copyright in, and we don't get their express permission to do it. So everyone listening, I don't want to freak you out, but if you're a streamer, your entire job's illegal.
If they choose to enforce it.
But
There are a couple games, right, that have said explicitly, like, we give you permission to stream this, but it's limited, is my understanding.
It's never a irrevocable license.
Right.
Either, right?
It's not.
Because, and I know this was a pretty popular thing, because Firewatch was one where they expressly put within their terms of use, I believe, or end users license agreement, they expressly put in there that you're free to go make Let's Plays or content creation.
Okay, I think that's the one I was thinking of.
But then,
and then they had the whole PewDiePie thing or something?
Yeah. PewDiePie decided to, you know, do
Papa
something
John's
really
it up.
stupid, yeah, and kind of Papa John's stuff. I was actually just reading about Papa John's stuff earlier, but yeah, that's a good way of putting it. PewDiePie decided to take a Papa John's, and so Firewatch then pulled his license and it claimed, I believe they used the DMCA to take his stuff off of YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I remember that being part of the discussion because the tool that they were using was the one that in their terms of service they had been somewhat circumventing, essentially. So people were like not necessarily disagreeing with their action, but their use of the tool is my non-lawyer recollection of the whole thing going down. And of course, you're getting blown out of proportion, everything.
It's a non-lawyer thing. I mean, your memory's your memory, man.
Just because I don't remember being a lawyer doesn't.
No, a lawyer, you.
Yeah, no. So we're going to focus on today mainly is copyright law, and so basically copyright law, if I might go into it, Joel,
go ahead.
is under copyright law, the creator of an original expression in a work is its author. So the way you can get a copyright is, and I'm going to go super legal for a second, is if you have a work, whether it be music, whether it be a picture, whether it's a smiley face that you happen to doodle on a Post-it note, a work that is fixed in a tangible medium of expression. So what it has to be to break that down is it can't just be fleeting. It can't just be I said a particular phrase, or I took a photograph that wasn't stored anywhere. It just was there for a brief second and then was gone. You can't get copyright in that. And so tangible medium of expression. It has to be your own artistic expression. So for instance, one of the issues that came up as copyright law was developing was people were trying to get copyrights on the phone book. And the phone book is a book of facts. You can't get a copyright on it. And so they got a little sneaky and they tried to say, well, I made up this person's name, so the entire thing is creative expression. Well, it's not. It's not.
That feels like one where like you take it to a judge and they just kind of look at you like, and then move on. Hopefully.
I licked it, so I own it.
Yeah, right? I've added my unique DNA or something like that. Yeah.
I licked it, so I own it is the original legal advice. No, that's a good tweet. I'm going to tweet that out later. What you need to understand about copyright is you can't, the original owner has all of the rights. So the original creator owns all of the rights. For instance, if I take a photograph and then Joel says, I'm going to put a filter on it and publish it as my own. He's created something that is original. However, it is what we call a derivative work off of what I've created. He's taken what I've created, added his own expression to it, and published it. He doesn't have the right to do that unless I give him that right. As a copyright holder, you have certain rights, and that is to perform, to create derivative works, to license. Basically, there's a whole bundle of rights.
To perform?
Yeah, you can perform stuff for music.
Actually, this is a point I actually want to get into. So if someone in chat or either one of you two can remind me about this later. Let's briefly touch on reading books on Twitch. Because for some reason, people think that's okay, right? Yeah. But we'll get into that. I can see Noah's, like the wheels turning in Noah's head already, right?
Oh, yep.
What if I transformed it by adding funny voices to my reading?
Nope. We'll get into that. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. But
so perform in this case, though, literally means if it is a musical work, for instance,
right,
performing it in front of an audience or something like that.
Right, and so that's what you can get into copyright infringement, which is another thing we'll be talking about today. So one thing you need to realize is that copyright infringement occurs when a copyrighted work, so say that piece of music, is reproduced, distributed, performed, publicly displayed
without the express written consent of the thing that's always on movies, right?
Exactly, without the express permission of the copyright holder. So you can see where there's a lot of rights that you might accidentally infringe without realizing. So if you publicly display some work without permission, you could potentially be engaging in copyright infringement.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's copyright, basically, in a nutshell, sort of. I just lawyered that phrase too. And it's extremely important because it's the foundation of streaming, essentially, because all we're doing is creating content and creating derivative works and taking copyrighted works to publicly perform them and to display them.
And this is and because my background's not in IP law, if you guys have watched the show, you'll know my background's in business law and tax law, which is why we wanted to bring on Noah, whose background is in IP law, to this show. But it's and correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is what I've been told also. This is how nuanced and weird that copyright law can get. Using Noah's previous example about his photo and then the one that I made a derivative work with a filter on that photo. One, I've infringed on his photo's right and is illegal. But at the same time, two, I own IP law rights in that infringing photo. So his derivative work is illegal, but I still own rights to that illegal work.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you've created something, which means that you've improved upon, potentially, I don't know what filter you used, but you've improved upon my work, created a derivative work. So I could sue you for copyright infringement. Not that I would, because we're buddies.
Yeah.
But however, if I use your work, you could sue me.
Yeah. Or if Galen was trying to, like, let's say Galen was like, oh, that filter's cool, but it could even be better if I added some stickers to it, right? So he tried to throw some stickers onto my filtered photo of Noah's original stuff. So he would be infringing.
So Joel tweeted out a picture of him kissing baby at law as his pseudo cat tags. Noah takes that, puts a filter on it. I take that and draw the weird little blush and kawaii lines on it. That's our. How about we use that as our example?
Okay. Noah's filter infringes on my original work, but he owns IP law rights in the filtered baby. Your kawaii lines on his filtered baby infringe on his work.
And on your work.
And on my work. But now you own illegal infringement rights on that kawaii line filtered baby.
Copyright law.
That's much clearer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if we haven't confused you guys enough already, let's use that as the base onto why copyright law is so complicated and why it means, even though as complicated as it is, why it's so important for you guys to know. Like, you don't have to understand a copyright law completely 100%, but you do need to know what potential issues and mistakes you might be making, most likely unintentionally, right? And unfortunately, there's no I didn't know defense when it comes to the law, right? You don't get a discount on the fines that you have to pay just because you didn't know, right? So that's why we want, and really that's the purpose of this show, is to bring up these type of issues so we can at least introduce them, get people talking about them, so that you guys are less afraid to ask the questions that need to be asked, or to know who to turn to take care of these things for you, right?
Exactly.
So with that said, now that we know now that we have a general vague understanding of copyright law discussed, right? Let's switch into the DMCA takedown process here. Or is there anything else you want to kind of talk about first, Noah, before we get into the DMCA?
That is perfect. It's a good segue into it. So
okay. So the DMCA takedown process is a legal process that is created by U.S. copyright law to help intellectual property right holders, right? It's a very specific process that needs to be followed, and Noah will kind of explain what that process is and why it forces Twitch's hands in a lot of regards.
Right. So the DMCA stands for Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which is why we went so into the weeds on what copyright is. The DMCA was created to allow service providers essentially a way to provide their services, such as Google image search, without receiving lawsuits all over the place. It provides safe harbors for from copyright infringement liability for what we call online service providers, such as Google, such as Twitch, Mixer, whatever. In order to qualify for the safe harbor protection, certain kinds of these service providers, YouTube, Twitch, Google, need to have certain takedown procedures. And the reason is they have to have a way for a copyright holder to notify them that there's infringing work on their service. So, for instance, if Joel uploads a video to YouTube that essentially contains, Joel, what's your favorite song right now?
I think I heard him get up.
All right, cool. Basically, if Joel uploads something to YouTube that is AC/DC, and it's AC/DC over a montage of photos that I have uploaded, and he's just infringing all over the place, I want him to take that down, or AC/DC wants him to take that down. Instead of suing YouTube, who is hosting the work, we send what we call a notification to YouTube. So that DMCA notice would tell YouTube, hey, I own the work that is on this channel. Please take it down. And there's certain things that I need to include in that notice. So I need to identify what the work is that is being infringed. On YouTube, I need to provide links to my own work so that I can prove that I own it, that I've uploaded it somewhere. We need to provide information that, quote unquote, is reasonably sufficient to permit people to contact the complaining party. So basically how to get in contact with me to tell me what's going on. And then a statement under penalty of perjury that all the information provided is accurate. So it's a lot of really complicated stuff, but essentially you swear under the chance of being criminally prosecuted that work is infringing and it needs to be taken down. Upon receiving a DMCA notice, YouTube, whatever the service provider is not allowed to look into whether or not the notice is valid. In some cases they do. They have some leeway, but in general they really shouldn't look into whether or not it's valid. They receive that, it's been sworn under penalty of perjury, they need to take the content down. Once the content is taken down, the person who is complained against, in this case Joel, who uploaded AC/DC to his YouTube channel, can submit a counter notification saying, actually, I own this AC/DC work. AC/DC doesn't own that work, and I'm swearing under penalty of perjury that I have a right to use this. And then it would have to be reinstated. At that point, AC/DC would have to initiate a lawsuit against Joel to get it taken down, retaken down, that is. But at that point, YouTube is fine and has complied with the DMCA and can't be sued themselves. Is everybody with me so far?
Sure.
Cool. Sounds good. Once you go through that DMCA process, you can see where at certain points it might be inopportune for people to respond and to get content taken down or put back up. But at that point, Twitch, YouTube, they've complied. They don't need to worry about lawsuits themselves. So
yeah, the platform's, to protect itself, the platform has certain rules that it has to follow, which are in favor of the person submitting the claim, at least initially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and that's so that they themselves are protected from getting that strike against them. They're sort of a pass-through almost of, it goes to the creator, not to them, if they follow a certain set of rules.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that in laws in general. I know for finance stuff, for instance, there are certain ways that an employer can set up a 401k where if they set it up like that, they're free from all sorts of like compliance measures that you would normally have to follow, because it's like, all right, if you're meeting this base standard, we'll free you from these other regulations, which can be kind of burdensome. And it sounds like that's also in this place. It would be too burdensome for a platform like Twitch or YouTube to monitor every single person on it. Therefore, they follow this process so that they don't have to do that monitoring themselves, at least not proactively.
It's a safe harbor law. There's a lot of safe harbor laws for...
safe harbor 401k is, what I was referencing.
There's a safe harbor law for many types of, like, for financial laws out there, for IP stuff out there, for tax. basically that's just to make it, because frankly it got so bad that like the recording industry, the movie industry, they had no way to go after every single personal infringer, especially when a lot of the infringers are actively taking steps to shield themselves from law enforcement, right? They were setting up entities in, countries.
For instance, saying under their YouTube video, "I own no rights to this, therefore don't sue me." Right?
No
The
copyright.
the top legal defense.
Yeah.
None was intended. No infringement was intended.
That's like a little bit above I licked it so I own it. So, but I'm talking about like torrenting sites who are purposely setting up servers in countries that don't have intellectual property law treaties with the United States, right? So they're actively taking measures to avoid law enforcement. So because of so much pressure, the industries that do create content, the recording industry, the movie industry, they had to push Congress to kind of give them something, right? So that's why they have that's why the DMCA was there, and that's why they have safe harbor provisions, because the safe harbor provision is something that kind of like, okay, it's for ISPs, right? Internet service providers. It's for online service providers. They were saying, okay, fine, we can comply with this, but you have to give us something so that there's at least a means for us to shield ourselves from liability. It's the same as like.
Otherwise, Twitch wouldn't exist as a service. YouTube wouldn't exist as a service. Like, it'd be too burdensome for them to do it. So part of the trade-off is that they have to follow those not as friendly to the creator practices.
Not as friendly to the consumer practices also, yeah.
So you've got I'd say billions at this point of videos on YouTube, and it's impossible for YouTube to police all of them to make sure they don't include infringing content.
It's impossible for them to check that they don't include ISIS and Nazis and child porn. So so they've got bigger problems than music in the background.
Yeah, but we're focusing on the music in the background. So basically, if YouTube did not immediately remove the content when they received the DMCA claim, they could lose their safe harbor protection, and at that point, they could potentially be liable for every single thing on YouTube. And so you have to strictly adhere to the DMCA. It's their biggest.
They're taking actions that might be rough for you in an individual case to enable the entire collective to actually be able to exist.
Yes.
Right.
So don't bitch at them for doing what they're supposed to do to let you do your damn thing.
Yeah. So and I feel like that's why, and obviously Twitch has a very smart legal department, so they're not going to come out and say, hey, you know what, they're not going to argue with its end users every time it just blows up on social media and everyone's taking their pitchforks and trying to shove them in Twitch.
They aren't going to win there.
Twitch is just going to stay silent because they don't need to put themselves in any other issues. Because let's be honest, right? No matter what Twitch says, pitchforks are still going to come because people are just too busy going la 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 instead of, and sharpening their pitchforks instead of actually listening to what Twitch says. So we don't have an interest. Twitch isn't paying us to say any of these things, but it's just, at this point we're kind of like, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. Please just listen. This is right. So
that's not how this works. Please listen. Also, at some point, if it makes sense, we'd love you to hire us. But guess what? You can't fucking hire us if you aren't following these damn rules and just spending all of your time complaining instead of doing productive things.
Yeah.
So, there's that too.
Something that Joel tweeted out a while ago, I just started clapping wherever I was. It was probably obnoxious. I was thinking I was in a movie or something. And he tweeted out, come see a lawyer before you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot
cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's more effective. And
we'll be happier. You'll be happier. Yeah.
Exactly. So interesting story, and this is mainly because we're creating content right now, and so we need to be a little entertaining. One of the most landmark cases that kind of gave rise to how we understand the DMCA today, and I forget exactly what the case is, but essentially what happened was there are these there are these adults who wanted to go and look at pornography.
As adults do.
As adults do. And what they were doing is instead of signing up to pay for porn, they figured out that the wonderful world of the internet is for porn. And so they did Google image search something like massive jugs or something like that. And I hope this is not a family-friendly stream. And
Is there a mature filter
I'm on
on
it. Yeah.
Galen's already been dropping F-bombs in chat anyway, so.
Right.
My wife gets on me for that afterwards.
And so what happened was these guys were just Google image searching instead of paying for the porn. So these pornography websites went after Google image search, and okay, thanks, man. I'm getting married soon, so on chat, somebody said I've been on the porn game too long. And and so they went after Google image search, saying, hey, because Google image search is finding these images and these guys are using it in place of our service, they're infringing. And so we're going after them to prevent them from offering the service. But Google was protected by a safe harbor. And therefore, Google still exists and porn lost. However, if they didn't have that, they could potentially be liable for every single image that they displayed. And the infringement statutory damages range from $700 to up to approximately $150,000 if there's intentional infringement.
It'd be per image, right? At that.
Per image.
Yeah, per image. And
say there's more than 3 Google results when you type in massive jugs and go to images. They could theoretically be on the hook for every one of those.
You know, Galen, I think while we're talking about this, you should go into Google image search.
Stop telling. Right, everybody in chat's already probably doing it. You don't need Galen doing it while he's live on the show. All right, he's already can't handle the hard IP and soft IP. You don't need him going overboard with massive jugs on Google image search. Okay.
Oh God, I don't know where to go from here. Anyway, so that was essentially, it gave the rise to showing how important safe harbors were for these content providers.
Yes.
So that's my humorous little anecdote.
Okay. All right. So now that we kind of have, hopefully we've talked you into putting your pitchforks down and explained what the DMCA process is. We're still on your side as content creators because, not just being professionals, we're also Twitch users, Twitch viewers in our own right? So we like to see you guys do content. We don't want to see you fined or sued into oblivion because of something unintentional, right? So how do you then protect yourself against DMCA takedown processes? Let's start with talking about copyright music just because that's what started the whole process. But it's important to remember that, and we will get into this later with the games and with the books and everything else. I saw that there's a question about books also. DMCA, the whole law is not limited to just music. Although the recording industry probably is the one that uses the takedown process the most, maybe after the porn industry, because like you heard about those, what do they call them?
Massive jugs?
No.
You wouldn't download massive jugs, would you?
No.
What was that old? You wouldn't download a car, right? Was the old
it was the
ad that they tried to run about?
IP law infringement mills or something like that. Like basically they were just going after people, suing like Joe Schmo just to get the settlements.
A la patent trolls?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay.
They're copyright trolls. Yeah, something similar to that. So that is an issue, right? So this. And it's important to point this out. We can just get into it. The DMCA is useful in a certain regard, right? Because it is needed to offer some protections for IP holders. However, it is a process that is often abused. And abused in, like, people will use it to troll other people. Like, I'm just going to submit a DMCA claim even though that's knowingly invalid. Right.
Although, as Noah was saying, right, at that point, you have said under penalty of perjury that you believe it to be accurate, right? So at that point, you are exposing yourself to some.
If you think about the whole DMCA process as a pendulum, right? So it started over here where nobody had any protections whatsoever for their IP, right? So they needed something to get back to that. So they introduced the DMCA takedown process. So, and that also includes, like, somewhere in the middle are the ISP providers, or I guess that's double. ISPs where they needed some sort of safe harbor, so safe harbors introduced and everything else like that. But the abuse got so bad that at some point they had to swing back the other way. Now you as a DMC takedown notice server, or how would you even say it? Like someone who requests it, right?
You're the complainant.
Yeah, as the complainant, you actually have a responsibility to make sure you're doing this not frivolously, not maliciously, and you actually have to, my research is accurate, you actually have a responsibility to consider whether fair use is at play here.
Oh, good. That's a discussion we should open, right?
Yeah, we'll get into fair use a little bit later, but like it's fair to say that they cannot use it just maliciously because there has been too much of that happening before, right?
Yeah.
So that's with that kind of door and very sloppy segue. This is how you can kind of get into protecting yourselves against DMCA takedown stuff, right? Well, obviously the easiest way to do it is to not use infringing IP, right? Don't use somebody else's IP. But as Noah said in the beginning of the show, this entire ecosystem is basically at the mercy of using other people's IP, right? We all play games that none of us personally developed, and we stream them. We don't own the licenses to use those games in that regard, right? Every time you buy a game and you click accept, and I know none of you read the EULA when on Steam or anywhere else, that you're basically, you don't actually, just because, even this goes back to buying physical cartridges and discs. Just because you own it or you own a cartridge, you don't actually own the game, right? You own a license to use the game. What you're buying is a license to play the game. And like now that's especially, it's even more aware now that people are just doing digital downloads all the time. There's nothing tangible you can even claim ownership to when it comes to a game. You just have a license to play that game, a personal, private license to play that game. You don't have a commercial license to play that game. But the companies are, for the most part, they're letting it slide. Some are more active than others in accepting it. Like Minecraft. Minecraft is very open, and Microsoft, when it started with Mojang, he was very open on letting people just use Let's Plays and whatever, because he knew that was good for business. Minecraft wouldn't be anywhere near as big as it is if people didn't actually enjoy watching Minecraft content, right? So, I can't tell you how many like little kids that I've talked to just because like from church or from anywhere else that are like, oh yeah, all we want to do is watch Minecraft. They don't even play the game; they just watch Minecraft videos, right?
Yeah.
So that is it's business savvy on their regard to know that it doesn't make sense for us to just DMCA the hell out of everybody when they're giving us advertising, right?
But they still have the ability to do it if there's some reason to.
Yes, they still have the ability to do that. That goes into kind of enforcement and waiver issues now. And there's a whole spectrum. Minecraft, Mojang, Microsoft, they're very friendly towards it. Then on the other side, you have Nintendo and Disney, right? So like, even then, to Nintendo's credit, they have generally let Let's Plays and YouTubes exist somewhat, but they are definitely not afraid to file a DMCA takedown or to tell you that you don't have the right to do this. They actually want everything to be done internally, right? But even Nintendo is not stupid enough or stubborn enough to fight the marketing and the ecosystem that now exists within content creation. So it's kind of like before you might have had some security through obscurity, but now you have some security through marketability, right? Because they know that this makes sense. They know that this is the direction that gaming is moving into, or just really any new media, new games, new online content creation is moving into. That's a very long, roundabout way of me explaining and saying that the best way may be to avoid using infringing IP, but let's be honest, if we're in this space, that's not an entirely possible situation. It's not a viable situation, right? So what can you do? You can know which ones are probably going to get you in trouble and which risks are not worth any possible reward, right? And someone had talked about it earlier in chat. We're talking about song request bots, right? First of all, it might be a little bit of a value add to your stream. Like, hey, you guys let's do a mini jukebox while I play games, right? I find it very hard to believe that value add is enough or to warrant a DMCA takedown risk and in turn a content strike against you by Twitch and leading to a ban, right?
The more, and it's more true the bigger you are.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's assume you have an entire stream that you dedicate to song requests because people really like to play music while you're streaming. Say you make $1,000 because people are requesting.
Let's just put it out there. I've seen channels that where song request is limited to subs, or even people have to tip a certain amount to request a song, right? So
Yeah.
you are just out there making yourself an actual jukebox, more or less, right?
And your damages there are likely going to be on the upper end of the spectrum because you're inviting the infringement. You know it's infringement, and those songs are going to be copyrighted because they're popular.
Yeah.
So you're looking at, say you make $1,000, but people request 20 songs. What's 20 times 150,000?
More than you can probably afford.
Yeah, at that point you're going to be hiring a lawyer for bankruptcy instead of getting music clearance.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think so that's just a very short way of saying yes, it's not worth it, right? So when it comes to music, what are some alternatives? And I know that we're not sponsored by Pretzel. Noah is Pretzel's counsel, but we're just saying this as
Gotta be ambitious, Joe.
I don't even know if we're allowed to be I know there's some professional responsibility rules about what content I'm allowed to make and whether it can be sponsored or not. Right. But I mean, it would be cool. I use Pretzel already, so I'm just gonna say, full disclosure, I have worked for Pretzel before. Right. So, having said all that, services like Pretzel, which they have, and no, I'll let you describe it because it's not exactly copyright free.
No, it's not. So if I could ban the term copyright free, I would. There's no such thing as copyright free anything if you're using it because what you more appropriate, you can't even really say royalty free because at some point the artists are getting paid royalties. What you would say instead is stream safe, safe to use. That's the most accurate way to say it. And full disclosure, I have an interest in Pretzel. And so I am talking about something that I, A, believe in, B, I'm counsel for them, and C, I have an interest in them. So, however, Pretzel, what we do is we work directly with the artists to get the ability to issue what you need. And what you need is a sync license. You need to be able to synchronize music in timed relation to moving images or, video. And you can't get that through an ASCAP or a BMI license. And if you don't know what ASCAP or BMI licenses are, then you really need Pretzel. ASCAP and BMI are performance rights organizations. Essentially, they collect royalties on behalf of artists and make sure the artists get paid out appropriately. However, they only collect performance royalties. They don't deal with synchronization licenses. When you are streaming music, in order to legally do that, you need a right to perform the music, because what you're doing is broadcasting a performance of the music. But you also need the right to synchronize that music in timed relation to your stream, because your Vods are going to get created, you're doing it live, and you might be uploading it to YouTube later. And so if what we do at Pretzel is we get the right to issue those licenses on the fly in a Spotify style player. And so a streamer can just literally hit Pretzel, select their mood, their genre, whatever they want, and music will play. And you can skip it. You can skip music. You can blacklist music, or you can just let it go.
Are you the guy I complain to when the fact that I'm using free music gets interrupted by one single chat line naming it and putting the artist there?
Oh, so part of what we need to do is part of what Pretzel does is we have forced chat attribution unless you're on the paid tier, which is premium. The reason is we want these artists to receive compensation for their work. And they are receiving compensation, but another thing we want to do is promote them. So one thing that we had when the forced chat attribution went live a few weeks ago is people said, hey, your Pretzel bot is saying music, 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 and that's all that's in my chat. And it's reminding me about how empty my chat is. And I'm like, well.
Which is not Pretzel's fault.
It's not my fault. So that's one way that we link back to the artist and make sure that the artists do get paid. And so what Pretzel does, it's an easy, simple solution. In the old days, you'd have to go out and do your own homework and find music that you were told was safe to use without any vetting whatsoever. Download it, put it in a playlist in Winamp or something, and then have that playing while you're going. You'd also, at that point, not be able to link directly to the artist's Spotify or to their iTunes to promote them, which would increase the chance that someone's going to come after you because you're not getting any attribution whatsoever. And so Pretzel solves that problem, and it's free, by the way. So what excuse do you have?
Yeah.
And so Pretzel is one way to protect yourself. It gives you the proper licensing. We actually just announced that no copyright sound is the entire catalog is on Pretzel. So
nice.
Yeah, that happened just last week. Okay. And I can talk about it now. So a source where a lot of people were going to get music is now automatically plugged in.
Yeah. So and like to kind of, if you guys don't really follow, or if you didn't follow what Noah was saying, because he definitely threw out a lot of complicated terms.
Yep.
And it's an indication of the more complicated terms there are, the more complicated the whole thing is, right? But the TLDR of what Noah is saying is when you want to actually use music in a stream, there are many licenses that you have to get. So he mentioned two of them specifically, the performance one and the sync one, right? So you need those licenses. You can, if you so chose to do so, go out and contact the recording artist or the copyright holder or the license holder and get the license and sync license for every single song that you wanted to play in there. So if I had the means to do it and I had the money to do it, I could go out there, get the licenses I needed for a Drake song and just have that playing 100% all the time in my background if I had the correct licenses to do it. One, it would be ridiculously expensive, right? Because
I say Ninja maybe could do it.
Even then,
of personal ties. Like,
well, no, Drake. I guarantee you, Drake doesn't even own the licenses to his music.
No, he doesn't. And so on certain songs that have been played, for instance, one song on Drake's album that was played actually has 13 people who contributed to it. They all have a copyright interest. Yeah, you have to go to all of them.
And I mean, if anything, the whole snafu that started this all on Twitch was because it was a I think it's a Juice WRLD track, right? It was a Juice WRLD track that the artist was giving it to these streamers to play, but what they didn't realize is that the artist isn't the one who has the license to give it away, right? The recording the art industry was the one who was setting up the DMCA takedowns, right?
The artist label actually is the one who issued the DMCAs.
Yes, exactly. The label was the one who did it because the artist signs
because the label has an interest in it. Yeah.
The artist signs a contract with the label, and most of the time that contract, the artist forfeits the right to do these things within that contract. He's getting paid for it, right? He or she's getting paid for it, but the label is now the one who owns those rights, right? It's the same as like Tom Cruise doesn't. Well, I think sometimes he gets weird contracts, but Tom Cruise doesn't own the ownership interest in his movies. He just stars in them. Right. It's the Universal or Fox or whatever his production studio is that owns it. This is the same regard. The artist might not even be the one who owns it. If you had the means to go out and secure all the licenses you needed to play that music, you can do it, right? It probably won't be cost effective. You probably won't even make any financial sense. You'll probably lose money doing it because I doubt anyone is subbing to your channel just to hear that song, right? What Pretzel did is they just took out all that middle work. So it's not that Pretzel is the music creator, right? Pretzel didn't make the music. They just bought the rights to the music and took out all that middle work for you. So they're providing you that service.
And one note I'll say just in general on services, if it's a service that explicitly offers it for free and you are using it for free, especially if they also have a paid option, you're the product in some way, right? And I don't mean that as a knock on Pretzel in the slightest, but if you're going to use something for free and you sign up for it and you click I agree, don't bitch about what it does because that's what you signed up for. You could pay them, or you could not use it, or you could not click the I agree and still not use it, but don't bitch about them what it does just because you didn't pay attention.
Yep. And so it's it's an easy way to take care of all these issues.
Yes.
I know somebody in chat, Cherry Bomb, who has been with us since the beginning.
Yes.
Of
Thank you.
this stream.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cherry Bomb. Well, he says, well, actually, it could be not that expensive. My friend tweeted Cardi B asking her if she could have the rights to play her music on stream, and Cardi B sponsored her stream. Now she can play all her stuff with no problem. That's wrong. Cardi B don't own her music. Cardi B is brand new on the scene and doesn't have the leverage to own her own music. And so she can't grant those rights. Cardi B's label does own that. However, even if Drake, so what could theoretically happen is Ninja could be playing with Drake and playing Drake's music, and then could receive a DMCA takedown notice on that stream with Drake in it. Doesn't matter. Drake could play his own music and get a DMCA takedown notice from his label. It is not
probably wouldn't happen at that point, right? Like
these are things that happen when we talk about this on the show a lot. Is what is allowed within the legal vacuum and what actually happens on the business side, right? So what happened with a lot of the DMCA stuff with Juice WRLD was like, because Juice WRLD I think he got pretty pissed at his marketing label or his record label. Like, this is what I've heard, so this is all kind of hearsay, but he got pissed, and then so the record label then just went ahead and retracted those takedowns, right?
Right.
Which they're allowed to do that, but it doesn't mean that they didn't have the legal right or that they were illegal in issuing those takedown notices.
Right.
No,
there's a difference between being allowed to
Yeah.
and having it be a good business decision.
Yeah. So Cardi B may have so Cardi B may say it's okay, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that she actually has the legal right to do it. If she says okay, her record label probably isn't going to go really against her wishes unless because they have actually a major interest in going against her wishes.
Right.
But
now, and somebody in chat did say that there's sponsored streams where Atlantic Records is paying streamers to play Cardi B's music. And in that case, they might have the right to do it.
Yeah.
I have not heard about that yet because I don't represent Atlantic Records.
Yeah.
Why not?
It all depends on what contract is.
Yeah.
It all depends on what the contract. Yeah.
But unless you have something that's explicitly gives you that sync license, let me just break it down. If you don't have a sync license, you can't add music to your video. Boom.
Yeah.
That's it. That's simple. So there's a lot of good ways out there. Pretzel, to take care of that. Pretzel's one of them. And so that is how you can protect yourself in this space. And the reason it's important is because what happened to YouTube is going to happen on Twitch, and we started to just kind of see it happen. YouTube used to be this like Twitch, and wherein people use music without permission all over the place. And then a YouTuber named Michelle Fan got destroyed in a copyright lawsuit where she was using music she didn't have permission for. And now YouTube has cracked down on the use of copyrighted music on videos because of that, and that's coming to Twitch pretty soon. Kind of an interesting note, we had something occur about 2 weeks ago where a bunch of random users on Twitch got temporary bans, and the reason was they got DMCA claims even if they hadn't been streaming.
It was the clips?
Yeah, so they got DMCA bans for clips. The stream itself, what happened was, okay, so here's how Twitch works in terms of muting VODs, and this is sort of answering a question we got.
Yeah.
Twitch mutes VODs using this algorithm it has. It recognizes the music in the video and automatically mutes portions of it using something called Audible Magic. Audible Magic is this company that basically goes through and identifies music for Twitch and mutes it. So Audible Magic goes through VODs and mutes them automatically. However, it wasn't going through clips and muting them. So so clips were being posted and content was being shared that wasn't muted, and therefore stuff that was subject to DMCA got out into the world. And so all these streamers who were clipping from other streamers' channels got muted when the original got DMCA claims when the original streamer didn't get a DMCA. So that bug has now been fixed, I've been told. But for a while, it was people were just getting peppered with DMCAs all over the place for the last couple of weeks.
Yep, and I'm mentioning it in chat now just to kind of take a little bit of a interruption. I'm mentioning it in chat now. Thank you for posting questions. We love it when you guys are active in chat posting questions, and we do hope that our conversation is prompting a lot of questions. Galen is doing his best to go ahead and catch those questions and putting it into this document that we have in front of us that we're working off of. But even then, there's a lot of chat going on. If you can, please post your question in the Discord channel that we have. There's a StreamerSquare Discord that I just linked. We have a specifically text channel for your brand, your business. Please go ahead and post the questions there. Alternatively, if you don't want to join the Twitch Discord, if you rather just kind of put it somewhere else, I'm going to go ahead and post a link here to a tweet. Go ahead and reply to this tweet with your questions then, and then that'll be another center or resource where we'll go ahead and try to source questions towards the end. Right now, we've been streaming for about an hour now. We'll probably leave like about half an hour towards the end of stream to answer any questions that you guys might have. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for asking those questions. Now, going back to our topic though, so Pretzel is a great alternative if you really want to have music within the background of your stream. Obviously, if you're not going to, like, if you have to use music, right? Pretzel is a great alternative for you to do that. The other alternatives are actually securing the licenses to do that, which is, as we explained, a very complicated process, or choosing not to stream with any music whatsoever, right? We're presenting our options here. Obviously, we are a little bit biased in that which one we think is the best option, which we think is the easiest option, right? And we've discussed our biases but these are the options that you have. I did catch things earlier about games that have copyright music in them. For example, GTA with their radio stations or other things like that. What are your alternatives there when you're streaming that? If there's an option to turn off the copyright music, and that's the safest option that you have. Actually, a lot of games now, because they recognize the importance of content creation, are starting to have that feature built into the audio settings that they have to avoid copyright music. And just to show you that it's not just streamers that are at risk for DMCA issues, it's also game developers themselves, right? GTA 4 recently had to go back and change some of the music that they had in-game because their license to use the music in-game ran out. It expired. So they had to either go back and resecure those licenses, because that's what they have to do. They have to renew the license, pay a new fee, or they have to just remove the music from game. So it's not that the end users are the only ones at risk. There's another situation where Alan Wake, the game, had copyright music in it, and they had to remove that game from Steam because they didn't have the license to use that music anymore. So it's just, if there's music is probably the one that everybody knows, and this goes back to Napster and Kazaa and downloading MP3s and everything else like that, right? This goes back to that. The music copyrights and the industry and users have been at heads for a while now because of the whole IP issue, right? And if I'll be honest, right? Back in high school, yeah, I downloaded MP3s illegally also, right? So I'm sure everybody else here has. I'm not condoning that behavior at all anymore. I don't do that anymore. I do have Spotify, and then I pay for Spotify Premium, right? My point is that you guys, it may seem like it's just one of those things where, like, I bought the iTunes digital. Why can't I have the use to use that, right? On one hand, yeah, it kind of sucks that there are so many restrictions on what you're allowed to do with stuff that you had paid money for, right? But at the same time, you want your favorite artists to succeed. You want to see them be able to continue to produce more music. And it's not just the artist that has an interest in, earning a livable wage. It's also the sound engineers, the recording studio employees, everything else like that.
There's a difference between paying for something to play at home so that you enjoy it and using it in something that then is subsequently making you money.
Yes, and let's be honest, like, whether or not you're a partner, affiliate, or whatever, all content creation is inherently a commercial activity, right?
Right.
We probably won't get into fair use today because that is just a whole other issue. Which we might have to get you back on the show again to actually tackle the whole fair use thing. But
Let's do it.
yeah, and there is a lot of misinformation out there that says that just because I'm not making money off of this, so that means there's no infringement. Big no, big hell no, big F no, all right? That is just a really, really bad piece of advice that I don't know why is out there, right?
It just means you have less money to then pay for the subsequent fines.
Yeah,
That's right.
so like, okay, and I guess I can't discount that all entirely because that does become a factor within the fair use determination without getting into fair use too much. But
the most important thing,
yeah,
I would say the most important thing to remember, and this will prevent us from getting into the fair use talk, is that fair use is a defense.
Yes.
It's not a right, and you have to be sued in order to claim it. Which
Right, it's not proactive.
It's not proactive. Yeah.
Take care of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you have a fair use thing, don't come to me. I'm not a litigator, right? I'm not going to help you with that. I'm not an IP lawyer either. You have to go to NOAA, yeah. But even then, be prepared to pay NOAA very handsomely. Yeah.
I'm getting married, so I could use it.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's see. There was one more thing I kind of wanted to hit. One of the most common questions I get as somebody who is in this space of making sure there's legal music to use on Twitch is, I've seen this thing called the Twitch Music Library. Why would Twitch have that unless it was safe to use? And the Twitch Music Library was created as a originally all the songs in the Twitch Music Library were cleared for use on stream. However, I have subsequently learned that a lot of those licenses that were originally given to Twitch in the Twitch Music Library have not been maintained, and they're not sure that all of them are still valid. For instance, you will get Dmca takedowns in some cases if you use the Twitch Music Library. Though it's up to you, but I wouldn't recommend using it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt Twitch takes any ownership or responsibility on you using their listing. And like, let's say you did get a DMCA takedown because you had used something that was supposedly within the Twitch Music Library. I'm sure their lawyers in no way, shape, or form had assumed any liability for using the Twitch Music Library. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right. It's not an ideal situation. You would hope that if they were putting that kind of resource out there, that they were putting in the work to maintain it. But it's also good to know that even though that seems like a reasonable assumption, it's not something you can rely on.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we just get it? Is there anything else on this agenda that we kind of needed to talk about? Because we're not talking about fair use today. Yeah.
No,
No,
I think
we're not.
Yeah.
I think we can get into questions. But one thing I do want to say about this, and again, my understanding of this is that this, while we're talking about the ways that you could, there's one thing I want to talk about, or I can just have it as my first question. But we've been talking about the ways that you can screw this up and get hurt by it, but this is also something that protects you, right? Like, This is something that protects you if you are doing things correctly and someone else is using your content. Like,
Yes.
I know there was a recent thing where Ninja had tweeted that a streamer on Mixer was just restreaming him and taking donations, and he contacted, and he contacted Mixer and they took it down. But theoretically, he could have also used this process if he didn't have so much clout that everyone jumps when he tweets at them, right?
I mean, like actually,
this is something that protects you too.
Doing that was Good Guy Mixer or Good Guy Ninja, right? And
Yeah.
Good Guy Mixer.
For sure.
Because like if you had, let's be honest, the DMCA process is a legal route. This is outside of Twitch. This is outside of Mixer. This is outside of YouTube. Once you start that, there are legitimate consequences for the end user or whoever's getting struck with the takedown notice.
Yep.
On Twitch's side, if you get hit with a takedown, that's almost like an automatic ban, right? And you're only allowed 3 of these before you start.
Just like YouTube, you need 3.
Yeah.
They start off as 24-hour ban. I think it increases on the second one.
7-day ban.
Yeah, and then permaban. Now you can get unbanned, but unless you are Ninja, that's not gonna.
Yeah, and You know, the DMCA takedown is also another alternative. They don't actually have to go through the DMCA route. They could just hit you with a lawsuit right off the bat if they chose to. If the DMCA, if the original copyright holder chose to do so.
That's what happened to H3, right?
Yeah.
Or they tried to do that at least.
Well, H3 won their case, so.
No, I know they won, but I mean that's what the guy tried to do, right? He's go straight to them, not through the DMCA route.
I think so. I'm not too familiar with that whole. Or so I think like so from what I recall from the whole H3 case, and this is, it's just a we'll end on this. I'll just say it before we get into the questions. We'll end on the H3 scenario because it's a good illustration of the whole process and how it works within content creation. For those of you who don't know, the whole H3 Productions case was because they were using clips of another YouTuber within their own YouTube videos. Right. So they are using somebody else's IP, right? The question was, is this infringing or not? And whether or not it was infringing was based off of they actually did elect to use the fair use defense, right? They had to go through the whole entire lawsuit process before they were found to be legitimately using fair use as defense.
It was a lot of money.
It was a lot of money. We're talking 6 figures, right? And that only works for that one video also. You don't, once you have the fair use defense, it's not that like, okay, now I'm cloaked with fair use, I can just do whatever the hell I want, right? No, you had, a court found that you had fair use in that one instance, and that fair use doesn't carry over anything.
That's
and I believe in their case, part of it was people were helping them financially
they had to
help, right? But to help sort of make to actually fight the good fight, right?
Yes.
As opposed to like people going, you know what, this is a high profile enough thing that it's worth it to fight the good fight to get precedent essentially in place.
Yeah. Well, they did it to make a point, right? H3 did it to make it a point to show what fair use actually is, and because like, you know, it was them going up another YouTuber, right? It would be a wholly different thing if, let's say, Universal Pictures came after them.
Right.
For
Guess who can outspend you?
Right. So that's just to illustrate the DMCA process is a very, and to a certain extent, fair use and copyright IP law is a very complicated procedure where you really don't want to play it out to the end. You want to do as much as you can proactively to make sure you don't get yourself into that situation in the first place, right? It doesn't help your Twitch career. It doesn't help you in professional any other way. Right. So this is why we do this show, to bring up these issues, to highlight it, so to do some education. Thank you, Noah, for being here. To explain these things, and we will do that. The initial response seemed to be very positive that they do want a fair use issue or episode, so we will do that. I'm going to sell out for a quick minute and say that we do have panels. Guess what? I've spoken on panels before with other attorneys to discuss fair use. I'm going to go find the video or the links to those panels before we start talking about.
I'll just start asking Noah questions while you're doing that.
So yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. And actually, if you are going to be at, oh no, that panel wasn't accepted, at least not yet. But I'm sure it'll come up. If you are going to be at PAX West,
they never accept my panels. PAX hates me.
We did submit one. The 3 of us did submit one, in addition with another popular guest here that we have on Your Brand, Your Business, Ernest, the CPA. We did submit a panel for PAX West that we haven't heard back on yet, so hopefully you'll see us there speaking about something like that's going to we're going to call that the Super Saiyan version of Your Brand, Your Business, because that is like the 4 of us, right? And we will be submitting a very similar panel for TwitchCon, so hopefully you'll see us there this year. I see some
2 days
fancy
tomorrow, so we'll be submitting it soon.
Yes, I do see some very fancy TwitchCon 18 badges in here. I don't have one yet because I am not purchasing a ticket yet.
We're trying to get the free tickets, speaker tickets, because I'm cheap.
Yeah. So there will be, we will be doing that. Hey, you know what? Go through on social media. Hey, we would love to see you guys at a panel at TwitchCon or something like that. Maybe we'll get some social media marketing behind us to say, yeah, we want these guys to speak at TwitchCon. But let's go ahead and get started into the questions. I will look for the links to those panels and just at least the ones that are available from previous TwitchCons and throw them in chat.
Perfect. Noah, question 1. All right, we've talked about music. We've talked about the fact that I can't use game, that I could theoretically be shafted for using a game because I don't technically have the right to stream it. What if I have Pokemon emotes?
Your Pokemon emotes?
Just saying. What if I'm a streamer and I primarily stream Pokemon stuff? What if my emotes is like Bulbasaur and it's me with like an ouch or some bullshit like that?
Well, if you you could that's copyright infringement. I mean, just plain and simple, because it's a derivative of a copyrighted work, and Nintendo enforces that heavily. In fact, I think I actually might have one. Let's see if I have any emotes.
Infringing emotes. Oh, I could. Let me just start spamming you.
Joel, would that be bad if I posted one of my clients infringing emotes in chat?
I don't know if you want to call out your client like that.
Never mind. So yeah, no, custom emotes that are containing infringing content are infringing content, and you could theoretically get in trouble for that. That's why if you have major streamers that, for instance, have Pokemon emotes, then they could get in trouble. That wouldn't be ideal.
And what other kinds of things could I accidentally infringe upon in building up my stream? We've talked about music, we've talked about games, we've talked about emotes. Where else can I screw this up?
Oh my goodness. Wow. You could.
This is This is and I actually saw this. I saw this. I'm just gonna hop in here because I did post one of them. That's not fair use panel. That's what we did at this past TwitchCon. It was me, Angela Alcid, Ryan Morrison, who goes by Video Game Attorney, and Colin Sullivan, who is the General Counsel for Patreon. That is it was a great panel that we talk about specifically about fair use stuff. So go ahead and go check that out. But going back to the question, this is an issue that's a little bit near and dear to my heart because I had thought about doing something like this, and I saw someone in chat ask this earlier. Reading books. This is going back to the performance rights that we talked about earlier with Noah about works. If you write a book in the U.S., you're under copyright law in the U.S., you inherently and immediately have the right to performance rights in that book, right, Noah? Right. Just if I'm wrong, just go ahead and shut me up.
You're 100% right.
Yeah. So what that means is, if it's a copyrighted book like Harry Potter, you can't be reading that on stream because J.K. Rowling, assuming she didn't sign it off to her publisher, owns the performance rights to that book. And by reading it on stream, you are performing it. It doesn't matter how many voices you use or how many voices you don't use, right? It doesn't matter how much you change that. What's going on? Our cameras are flying all over the place. Yeah. Galen left, so now our cameras are all off. But still, going back to that issue, you don't have the right to use to perform readings of Harry Potter on stream. At the same time, that goes for any book that is still within copyright. So there is a limit to copyright law. What is that limit?
Well, copyright law is limited by the thing we're not talking about, fair use.
Well, no, I meant like I meant more specifically, when do the copyrights expire?
The copyrights will expire. Gee, many. I don't even have that memorized because it hasn't hit for a lot of my clients. I
want to say 70 years.
It's life of the author plus 70 years unless it's unpublished, in which case it's longer, or the rights were assigned, in which case it's life of the author plus 95.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Expiration. I got this right here. Yes. So if the work was created on or after January 1st, 1978, it is life of the author plus 70 years. Depending on the nature of the authorship, it could be life of the author plus 95 or 120 years. Any work published after January 1st of 1978 is guaranteed at least 25 years of statutory protection. However, the length of copyright keeps getting extended because of Disney.
Yes. Disney's going to ride that train as long as possible. You screwed it all up again, Galen.
What?
Galen.
You left, and then all the cameras went weird on.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
Joel, while you talk about that,
Yeah.
I'll talk about how
Noah's face is me.
yeah. I'll talk about how the mouse did Disney.
Yeah.
So Disney extends copyrights because every time that I'm just not going to look at what's going on the screen. Every time that the Mickey Mouse copyright comes up for expiration, Disney's lobbyists go into Congress and say, "Hey, let's extend copyright for another 15 years."
Disney's lobbyists with very, very fat wallets.
Extremely fat wallets because the mouse runs everything. Go in there and they extend it for another 15 years and nobody opposes them because nobody understands copyright enough in Congress to do anything about it. And at some point, copyrights need to expire because the reason copyright law was developed was to allow an author to exploit their work and protect it. But at some point, it goes into the public domain. For instance, Shakespeare in the public domain. So you
near
can
and
go
dear
on,
to your heart. Yeah.
Near and dear to my heart. Actually, I'm going to be leaving out of here and going to run the Richmond Shakespeare Festival at Agecroft Hall. But Shakespeare is in the public domain, so you can read Shakespeare all you want on stream.
Yes. Three Little Pigs was the specific question. So Three Little Pigs, I'm pretty sure, is within public domain.
Oh, really?
In theory. So
yeah, I can't say for certain. Yeah.
Yeah, let's check it. But yeah, so I think this came from the reading books on Twitch. You can read books on Twitch as long as they're in public domain. You can't otherwise, unless you get express written permission from the author to do that. And that's actually not too difficult to get in some cases. I've negotiated that for a few of my clients. Books are not like music, wherein the author is looking to really exploit the live streaming of the reading. So it actually might be a way to bring more attention to the book. And so a lot of authors are willing to do that.
Yeah. So like it's different. Like, let's say you're going to record an audio version of the book, right? That probably won't get the fly from the publisher. But if you're just reading the book, actually, I would be curious to like see, because somebody did ask earlier in chat, like if they are interested in getting legitimate licenses, whether that's a sync license to music, whether that's reading audio the books. What are the resources available to go ahead and find those? Like, is there a way, because you mentioned ASCAP and BMI earlier as catalogs. What are the ways that you can go ahead and try to secure the licenses properly?
So ASCAP and BMI will tell you who you need to go to get the licenses. And keep in mind that when it comes to music, you've got the composition right and the recording right. So the composition is the written sheet music. The recording is that particular recording of the written sheet music. Sometimes those are split between people. If you have a writer and then someone who said, "Hey, I want to perform that," and then record it, they license that from the writer, go off and perform it. And those are sometimes split. However, on ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, wherever, those performance rights organizations, they have lists of who owns those rights and who you need to go to. Now, I will tell you that because the amount that artists get paid for performances is set by statute, or covers are set by statute, the synchronization license is their most valuable right. So, for instance, if an artist is approached by a movie production company, and they will likely charge somewhere between $12,000 and $50,000 for that synchronization right. Now, streamers can't afford to go out and pay even $500 per track, which is what the artist would need to get to even cover the legal fee to write the license. So oftentimes you won't be able to get it for super cheap. Beat Saber is different, Steez. Shoot, I can't talk about that. Beat Saber, in some cases, you might be able to use if they have secured the synchronization right, which in some cases they have. Follow up later. But yeah, so where was I going with that? Yeah, you can find who owns the rights. However, the process of negotiation, you need a lawyer.
You should have a lawyer. Yeah,
I heard those
you
are
don't necessarily need to have a lawyer, but you should have a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be super expensive to do it individually.
Yeah. I should qualify. I know Galen was kind of being tongue-in-cheek. It's expensive because you have to pay the license. Hiring a lawyer is never as expensive generally never as expensive as you think it is. Okay.
Right.
And I'm not just selling my services or Noah's services, but it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely cheaper than, you know, getting sued for it. But lawyers are bound by professional responsibility rules on how much they can charge, right? If you're obviously you're going to a very high-end lawyer, a very knowledgeable lawyer who has a lot of expertise and experience in an industry, then he probably will charge more, and rightfully so. And this is just kind of because I'm trying to get rid of that stigma of like I can't afford to hire a lawyer, right?
Right.
Lawyers generally will always do an initial
Joel's
free
cheap.
consult.
He did work for me and he still hasn't billed me.
That's just me being not a good administrator of my work. Okay, so that is I'm not doing pro bono stuff all over the place, man. Right? But okay.
Yeah.
Having said that, we do initial consults free. Like, and I haven't really or on the cheap, right? So that is so. Oh, don't be afraid to talk to a lawyer. We're not like
Agreed.
we're not all, you know, personal injury ambulance chasers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, cool.
Yeah. Let's see. We have a lot of questions here, actually, so I'm going to run through some of them, see how many that we actually already kind of talked upon. Is there still any information legal-wise when it comes to video game music, not copyright popular music? I remember hearing something about video game music is in the gray area. So, and this. Okay, so this is a little bit different in that I guess this, if I'm understanding this question correctly, it's just what is there a difference between soundtrack, video game soundtrack music versus like a Taylor Swift song. Let me start you right off by saying that there's no such thing as video game music is a different copyright than a Taylor Swift song. It's all under the same copyright, right? You might be okay in that like usually whoever owns the copyright to the video game music is probably the game developer. So if the game developer is letting you play the game on YouTube without issuing you a DMCA, chances are they're not going to issue a DMCA just for the game music, right?
Right. If they're going to hit you, they're going to hit you with a whole suite of things and not just that one.
Yeah. So that's why it's not that it's a legal gray area or anything like that, because they still have every single right that Taylor Swift's record company has in Taylor Swift's music. It's a gray area in that they may not choose to do the enforcement of it. And so the enforcement and the waivers, what we talked about before, just because I don't choose to exercise a legal right I have doesn't mean that I am waiving that legal right. Usually waiver has to be done in written, explicitly in writing. So
right.
Unless you got a contract from the game developer saying I waive my right to enforce copyright music or copyright claims for this video game music to your stream, then they still have the same protections that everybody else has.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, going through these questions, we talked about the books one. We talked about how. So I don't know if Three Little Pigs specifically is in public domain. Is there a way that you can check what works are in public domain?
Yeah, you can find out when they were published. Generally, if they're published before, let's throw back a nice safe number, 1850, then you're probably good.
Yeah, but you do have to be careful because there's always like, one thing about being in public domain is that let's say the Three Little Pigs fairy tale or the Brothers Grimm's version of that or whatever is in the public domain. If somebody made a derivative work off of that, and they can because it's public domain now, they can choose to make their own version of it. That starts a whole new copyright for that one. So if I went out and made a Shang at Law version of Three Little Pigs featuring Baby at Law, I own the copyright on that Baby at Law story. So I think that's what you were getting at earlier, right, Noah, right. About being careful about whether or not it is explicitly within public domain.
Right.
Okay. There's a
the next one we have on there on the custom emotes. So this is one that I put in because I'm curious to hear your opinions on it. A couple large streamers like Carnage, Dan's Gaming, that kind of stuff, do really awesome custom emotes. They've got their 50 emotes, and then on top of that, they'll customize those emotes to match the game that they're playing. So like Dan will be playing, he's playing Vampire, I think, somewhat recently. And so he changed all of his emotes to have, vampire collar, fangs, blood, that kind of thing. How do those work?
Wow. If it's, say for instance, Joel has an emote, we have a fourth guest. So if Joel has an emote that is of himself, and it's just himself staring at the camera, but then he all of a sudden starts to do a Pokemon Go stream, and so he puts little Pikachu ears. Potentially, you could get copyright issues there, because it depends on the elements and whether or not the amount. Fair use.
Yeah, that's fair use again.
But yes, in theory, you could have issues there. If it's a sponsored stream, you have less of a chance that you have an issue.
Yeah.
So
there. I don't mean to skip ahead of the question, but Steve did bring up a very good issue in chat, which I don't know if we actually talked about during the previous part of the stream. It says certain forms of copyright force the holder to go after infringement, otherwise they risk the chance of losing their rights themselves. So they do have to make efforts to actually chase down offenses.
Right.
Yes, and Noah can definitely speak to this. It's not the same as safe harbor for Twitch or whatever, but it is like well, you can go into that. Why do they have to actually take action? Like, what do they risk by not taking action?
So if they don't take action, there's a chance that they could risk diluting their copyrights and essentially making it so that they don't have an enforceable copyright. They could be barred in some way from suing there, and therefore they have to enforce, which means they have to go after people.
Yeah. I think this a pretty good illustration of this is like, I remember one time there was so much negative PR about like, why would Disney go after a mom and pop bakery just because some kid requested Mickey Mouse on their birthday cake?
Yeah.
And this is exactly it, right?
And it almost goes a little bit into the trademark dilution argument too. So it kind of blends into from copyright and trademark there.
Yeah.
So we can talk about trademark on another one too.
Anyway, this is turning into a 3-parter, man. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I've got another question here that I really want to answer.
Sure.
So if Dmca is a problem, then why do all these bots have song requests and stuff if it's obviously a bad idea? Because the companies that allow you to do that don't care about you. It's very simple.
That's a very harsh but brutal truth. And
yeah.
Okay. Whoever wrote the bot isn't liable for using the music. He didn't play the music, right? He doesn't upload the songs or anything. All he did is write code, right? His code doesn't infringe on anybody unless he stole code, right? But then at
however,
that point,
he is contributing to copyright infringement, so they could theoretically be liable there.
Yeah. It's a pretty big hurdle, isn't it?
Also, we're assuming that the person who wrote like Nightbot, for instance, knew all of this ahead of time, right? So like, why are they doing this? Obviously problematic. Also, they could just they could be just as ignorant as any streamer on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's some like issues now about litigation, like intent and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And
but it's not like these custom bots have like huge legal teams behind them or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when Twitch extensions first came out, there was another extension that basically plugged into your Spotify account and said there's a company. You can read my articles if you want to, because I won't call them out live. But there's a company that basically said, yeah, you can use our extension to play Taylor Swift or Chainsmokers. And that violates Spotify's terms of service, because Spotify doesn't allow you to live stream using Spotify because they don't have the rights to allow you to. And B, it's copyright infringement, and you can get a claim. So that company basically was encouraging people to use song requests and their player when it would just induce copyright infringement, because they were charging for it and they can make money off of it, which is not good. However, I will say Pretzel has song requests now.
That is curious though, because I know that. How does that work then? You can kind of go into that a little bit just to explain why that's legal versus another one is not legal.
Yeah. So with song request, when we launched it, we had to go back into negotiations with some artists and essentially say, hey, we want to launch this. It's a way for you to receive more money. It's a way for the streamers to receive more money, and it's a way to promote your songs more. So now you can use bits to request songs for if you have that extension enabled. So, for instance, one of my favorite streamers, McLaffy Taffy, boom, he has song request enabled, and you can go into the stream and say, find your favorite Made Monster song. Made Monster is one of my favorite acts of all time. And say, hey, for 100 bits, I want to request this song. And then the artist gets paid, the streamer gets paid, and the song plays. It loads in the queue. And it's kind of cool. It allows you to kind of DJ streams. And it's legal because we specifically got the jukebox rights.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so again, this is going back to, we haven't hammered the point in, Pretzel takes a lot of that license chasing out of the equation. Because they did that already. They have good relationships with the artists. And like, you know, some people give flack to Pretzel because like, whoa, how come the Chainsmokers aren't on there, right? They can do that because because the artists that they are working with are, you know, not as large as your top 40 artists, but that means they can get those licenses.
Just make it tempting enough for the chain smokers to want to do it. Offer them enough money. And I don't mean Pretzel. I mean you, person who wants to use Pretzel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just got a question that I want to address in chats from Balada. Says, can you request that Pretzel get certain songs that they don't have at that time? Yes, you can. Can't guarantee I'll be able to get it quite yet, but you can.
Yeah. All right. Just kind of running through the next questions we have. How does muting on Twitch videos work? This one was they were playing Life is Strange, which has copyright music in the game, and noticed that VOD got muted. Why? It's because we talked about the same thing with GTA and everything else before. Life is Strange developers have the right to use that music within the game. Their license does not extend to you as a content creator then to make videos with that music, right? So just because it's in game doesn't mean you actually have the license then to do stuff like Let's Plays with it or streaming with it. It doesn't transfer. Yeah. What about if music is AI generated in a similar style to a popular music track? I'm not sure if I completely understand this one, but I'm thinking of like if someone, it's almost like a cover or a parody of the music that was generated by AI. I mean, like it depends on how closely that's going to get. It can an argument made that they were actually just sampling that music without doing it legally, right? That's just like I feel like that's a very complicated issue that we're not.
From Noah's expression, I can tell it's very simple to answer.
In a vacuum, if you created an AI, so it's like the 1,000 monkeys with typewriters will eventually create the works of Shakespeare.
Hey, which are in the public domain, so there you go.
Exactly. If those 1,000 monkeys with guitars randomly created, I don't know,
Jimmy Buffett or something.
Yeah. Jimmy Buffett, with no outside influences whatsoever at all. They could win if they got sued, but they'd have to get sued.
Yes. You'd have to prove it first. Yeah.
It's incredibly specific. You'd have to go through a lot of stuff to get there. But in theory, after you've paid a couple $1 billion in legal fees, then you could probably win there.
Yeah. So, and take this however you want. Within the U.S. legal system, and we should have said this in the beginning, this is all based off of U.S. copyright law, right? It's applicable to many streamers, even those outside of the U.S., because a lot of the songs that are being sampled and whatever the content is being created is all based in the U.S., so it's subject to U.S. copyright law. But in the U.S. legal system, it is very easy to sue somebody. It is very costly to see a lawsuit to the end, and it's much more difficult than to win a lawsuit, right? But the fact that it's very easy to sue somebody and even easier to issue a takedown notice is that you have to be aware that to chase those risks and to chase those defenses is going to be extremely expensive. It's a pay-to-play market. Okay. So I hope that whoever asked that question, if you're still in chat, I hope that kind of answers your question. Another question was, I do use some copyright music on my stream, though I asked the right to use from the artist himself. We talked about that also earlier, about whether that's written approval by the artist. Number one, does the artist actually have the legal right to issue that approval? Number two, which one did you actually get? Did you get the sync license from the artist and everything else like that? I think we talked about, Noah discussed this with the DMCA process. They have to, by default, issue that takedown and then take the infringement down. But then you can appeal that takedown and saying you have the right, and then Twitch then puts the video back up, right? And then it becomes.
That's exactly what you would. I would also say. Go ahead. I was going to say, I would also say to whoever wrote this question, please, as someone who is not your lawyer, but is your friend,
yes,
please never, ever, ever say, I do use copyrighted music on my stream.
You don't want to admit stuff like that right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
can a license become invalid if, say, the copyright is sold to somebody else? Definitely, right? Copyrights licenses get sold all the time, and it's whoever the purchaser or the buyer chooses to do with the license, assuming their contracts give them certain rights and whatnot, right? So everything is still going back to the your brand, your business motto. It depends, right? So it depends still applies to a lot of these because it depends on what contracts are negotiated, what rights are negotiated, and everything. But you and I won't know what those rights are unless we're actually party to those contracts. So it depends. It's not a good use or a good excuse to say let's just test it out, right? It depends, meaning I would err on the side of caution, especially if the value isn't exactly there.
Yeah.
Right. So for games with copyrighted music, we should disable the in-game music. Yes. Are there legitimate services online, like specific sites to search and purchase sync licenses? Do you go through the record label? Those are the catalogs that Noah had mentioned earlier. What's the sequence?
I want to hop back real quick to this. For games with copyrighted music in it, we should disable the in-game music. Every single game has copyrighted music. You don't have music in a game unless it's copyrighted because it's fixed in a tangible medium of expression. So mute your in-game music all the time.
Yeah. Well, I guess to kind of do a little bit of a counterpoint, that I'm sure but when they meant specifically copyright music, is that like a track that a recording artist put together, not that one that the game developer created, right? So yes, all music is copyrighted but is it in something that the game developer licensed from a recording artist, or is it something that the game developer hired a composer to create?
Right.
If it's a game developer hired a composer to create, like we said earlier, chances are they're not going to DMCA you just for doing the composed music. If they do, they're DMCA you for the game. Right?
What if a game developer, if you are a musician and a game developer has their music in the game and then hired you to create an album of it in a different style?
I know what you're getting at. Yeah.
I know who you're getting to.
Yeah. Well, the music, because then assuming that they hired the developer, the composer, then to create an outside album, right? It's a soundtrack for the game. And a lot of games now do sell their soundtracks because they have good stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's another risk, right? It's another level of risk. I wouldn't stream that album off of SoundCloud or Spotify or whatever as background music for your stream. When I say specifically copyrighted game developer music, I'm saying the music is playing because you're playing the game, not that you requested the music to be playing. Let's say,
what if you're a musician and playing it, like literally recreating it?
Then they were getting into cover licenses, right? So that's another license that you have to be aware of. Let's see. Are there, going back to the sync license searches, what is the catalog for sync licenses?
They're sync license clearinghouses. You can find them using simple Google searches, but there really isn't like a catalog of sync licenses. That would be nice.
There's not just a lot of paperwork there. Like you got to contact the record label, see who owns the sync license, and from there you start the whole negotiation process. You're certainly welcome to try to do it. I would be curious to see if anybody had the means to do it and to try to do it that way, but I don't really see it happening anytime soon. Okay, so these are the same. This is the same question. This is a good question. So we talked about copyright stuff. What about fan art and drawings of characters? Like I'm assuming this gets to the question. Like if you drew the emotes based off of.
Let me go track down some tweets from Ryan Morrison to see about it.
Fan art and fan games and fan-made anything are all derivative works and are therefore infringing.
Yeah, so derivative works then gets into the whole fair use argument again, which is simply just, we don't have the time to talk about that today. But you are starting off on a slippery slope already when we're talking about fan art or fan projects. Let's just call them fan projects. You know what else also considered a fan project? Cosplay, right? You're taking a character somebody else created and has the rights to, and then you're doing that. Like, then we probably won't be seeing, like how much money does the game developer actually, is at risk of losing, or is at in hope to gain from suing a cosplayer from making a Pikachu costume, right? It's not there. Like how much are they making off prints, right? So it's just,
theoretically, if I was like Hitler Mario, they might want to come after me, right?
Yeah, I mean, they
Like,
obviously have.
it's not a question of losing money in that case from the like. There was some opportunity they wouldn't get, but some like negative association that I might be creating.
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors at play. Like we said at the very beginning, this whole ecosystem of content creation, whether you're a cosplayer, which is also still content creation, you're taking photos and you're uploading them on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. It's definitely we could just call it a derivative industry, right? It's an industry that exists off of another industry, right? And so how well do those industries work together? That all depends on the relationships that they have and what kind of relationships are forged. It's definitely a new area, so we're still going to see a lot of changes within regulations here, laws here, everything else.
Right.
Wouldn't DMCA make all rhythm or music games kind of dangerous to stream? As like
Yes,
Rocksmith
100%.
or Just Dance? Yes, it is.
Guitar Hero, there's a lot of people who make modded Guitar Hero with games off of even Pretzel or songs from like 99 Lives or Approaching Nirvana, and those would be safer to stream because you can get a license to put that music to video. But if you straight up use the song and play Santeria, and then you're gonna get killed.
Good choice though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll practice Santeria. Sorry.
Yeah. So. Semi off topic, would Nightbot have the safe harbor thing like Twitch and YouTube? I don't think so, right? Because they're not. Well, they are an online service provider.
They wouldn't be striking it from their platform though, right?
Yeah,
there's no harbor to be safe from because they're not the one hosting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not actually hosting their. Although you could say they're providing a way to get access to.
Yeah, because it's actually not just hosting only. There's like a pretty broad definition of who ISPs qualify as.
This is like when you give a mouse a cookie. If you ask a lawyer a question, they're going to want some data to go with it.
Yeah, this is always the hypotheticals. Yeah. We can't answer that definitively. It doesn't really, would Nightbot be interested in getting that? I don't know, right? But I think if anybody was going to go after anything, Nightbot probably isn't the first target they would aim for.
Although if you do, someone in chat works with whoever creates Nightbot, then Joel and I would be happy to talk to you.
Yes. Okay. We had other questions also, and there still are questions pouring in. I'm going checking our Discord now to see if I missed any questions. But there's one from Boyfruit. Hey Boyfruit, how are you doing? How do I make the distinction between when something is derivative and when something is just technique? Say I'm making an intro for my stream and I'm using techniques similar to what is used to make the intro for HBO's True Detective and could yield similar looking results. Can a process technique be considered derivative, or does it have to include actual content from the copyrighted material? That's a great question. We're talking about like styles and stuff.
Read that question.
What was that?
Send me an invite to your Discord channel so I can.
It's in the Your Brand, Your Business. It's in the StreamerSquare Discord, but I'm just going to post it in the article or in our working agenda. Whoops, that's so. Format. Come on, why are you doing that?
All right, I can read that. How do I sounds relevant? Some just techniques.
There, yeah. While Noah's reading that, let me go ahead and start seeing if we have any other questions.
Can I process? Yes. Golly, that's super fact specific.
Yeah. That's a huge. It depends.
I hate to say this, but I'm gonna have difficulty answering that question without giving legal advice.
I mean, it goes into like so.
Yeah.
Let's say a broader question. Then, can a style be copyrighted?
Yeah.
And the answer is it depends also, right? Because
it's another it depends.
Because we've seen this it kind of goes into how much of that style is associated with a certain brand, right?
Right.
So
if you were recreating a map of a game in the style that Game of Thrones has at the start with the sort of clockwork-ish thing where they're recreating all of Westeros, right? That would be something where you're like, well-known, unique style. It's literally their intro, might be pushing it, right?
Right.
I mean, and anytime we say it depends, usually we say it depends because it'll really literally depend on what a court decides.
Right.
So, I mean, you see parody logos all the time, right? So people parody the Netflix logo. People parody the... and I don't say parody in the legal sense. I just mean that they copy it and make it their own, right?
Somebody made me a Better Call Saul logo, style logo. It was Better Call Noah.
That's awesome. I want to see
Yeah,
that.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my Twitter somewhere.
Okay. But yeah, like, sorry, Boyford. I know that you. I hate to do this to you because I know it's a legitimate question, but it does literally depend on kind of the specifics. And if we were to kind of give you any guidance, like as little guidance, as much guidance as we can give you, it's the more unique you can make your thing, the better.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? If you feel free to repost your question, re-ask your questions here in chat. I'm going to go check the tweet to see if there's any replies there about questions. I thought I did see some.
We'll see if I can't find the Better Call Noah thing.
I would say, but in general, the answer to these things is it's really tenuous ground that we're on, and it's the kind of thing where the more popular this kind of entertainment medium gets, the more likely it is that things that shit will go down, right?
Okay, let's be frank, right? Record companies didn't care about this space before because there was no money in this space, right?
Right.
They're not going to chase something if all they're going to be doing is they have to pay their lawyers too, right? So,
but now that Ninja gets more views than CNBC,
yeah. So they have to pay their lawyers too, and their lawyers are even more expensive than Noah and I, right? So it only makes sense for them if there's a return on chasing that, whether that return is monetary or that return is protection for their IP. The same is true for government, right? We don't see a lot of the IRS situations where they're going after streamers for not filing their taxes because, number one, they probably didn't even know that money existed, but now that they know that money's out there, then you are going to start seeing more attention. Right. So we're getting to a tipping point where you are going to start seeing more actors out there that are not always, their interests are always aligned with streamers or even with the streaming platform, right? But they do have skin in the game. Their IP's out there or their government, and they have a right to be there.
Noah got nailed.
I just got nailed by the bot on this channel.
Sorry, we don't actually own the channel. We just have permission to use the channel, but I think I can do this. Permit my lawyer friend. There.
Hey, there you go.
Okay.
Well, you've got that, and I believe, again, I've used his name like twice now, but Ryan Morrison's Twitter profile is literally a fan art of him as a character from Overwatch.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what it looks a lot like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So.
That was funny. I just got wrecked by the channel. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Is there anything else? Any last questions? We are hitting that 2-hour mark, so we are going to start wrapping up. Oh, thank you. Let me see if I can do that. Let's see if that command works. Uptime didn't work.
Well, you typed it incorrectly, so.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. I don't know if there is 2 hours.
We're definitely. Yeah, I would say we're definitely going to be having more topics like this. My wife's saying bye to me and laughing at the fact that I'm draped in cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we are definitely going to cover more of these kinds of topics because they are super relevant. They are things that you need to know about, and you need to at least know, even if it's something where maybe you're small enough that you decide, okay, I don't need to do this right now. It's something where you need to know that there's a risk, and you need to make your own risk analysis of whether or not it's worth it to you, and at what point it becomes worth it. And that risk analysis should, as your stream grows, become a part of your business decision-making. This is the part where I actually get to talk because it's not the law stuff.
Yeah.
These are all really important business questions that you as the business owner need to know that you need to be asking, even if you're just asking yourself and making that analysis on your own. But you need to know that you need to make it, and you need to know that it's on you to figure it out. And now you know people you can go talk to when you have that question of, oh, is this something that I should start legitimately worrying about now? Because you should always be aware that it is a potential issue. But it's on you as the business owner to figure out when you need to actually deal with it.
Yeah. Lightning quick question. DMCA and software, right? Because we talked about books, we talked about music. What copyright does do software providers, software companies have?
Software companies, typically the most obvious one they have is in the data. So you can actually copyright data and how it's put together. I actually have not encountered a DMCA against software. I'm not sure. I'll go look. I'm going to look that up, and whoever posted that can DM me, and I'll be happy to answer that question because I need to look it up.
That's a sign, by the way, whatever way I need to point, of a good professional.
Yeah.
Someone who's willing to say, I don't know, but I'll follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. All right. We still do have some questions. Let's see. All right, this is going to be the last one. I apologize for anybody else. This is just because it's Pretzel. Are there contracts and licenses open-ended, which I doubt, and how can we as streamers be sure those licenses won't run out and put us at risk? That's a great question, and you are asking the right person, which is Noah.
Yeah. I actually have permission to answer this question because it is attorney-client privileged. But
Pretzel's lawyer said he could answer it.
Yeah, exactly. What? So the contracts and licenses that we generate, essentially, we receive a license to issue a sub-license to you. So say, for instance, Joel is streaming, and Joel uses a song by Approaching Nirvana. Approaching Nirvana on Pretzel has given us the right to issue to Joel an irrevocable perpetual license. So as soon as Joel plays that song on stream, that one use, is forever protected. However, if at any point Approaching Nirvana and Pretzel end the relationship, we cannot issue further licenses. So say one day you come to use Approaching Nirvana, and the next day it's not on Pretzel anymore. You can't go back and just reuse it.
Yeah.
That's a nifty bit of lawyering there.
Yeah, that was one of the first things that I told him we need to make sure we protect our streamers because I want these content creators taken care of.
Yeah. So it is, meaning all past uses are protected, but there's no guarantees on future uses.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Noah, thank you so much for being here. I know we're cutting it close. You got a Shakespeare festival to get to. I got baby stuff to get to. Galen's got other stuff to get to. Volleyball. There you go. All right.
The thing my wife just left for was a wine and cheese tasting that I'm not going to because I knew the show would go this long. So I sacrificed for you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you on behalf of chat. And also chat, thank you for being here and asking questions. We love it when you guys are interactive. It helps the show go much faster and also sometimes run longer, but that's okay. Right. Noah, where can they find you? I posted your Twitter in there already.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at my lawyer friend.
Yep.
I'm also on Twitch. I'm actually start streaming soon, apparently.
There you go.
At my lawyer friend. And I'm on Instagram at my.lawyerfriend.
I didn't know you had Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Instagram mostly personal stuff.
Okay.
But you're welcome to follow along on my life.
Okay, and what else? Everyone congratulate Noah ahead of time. He's getting married in 2 weeks, like 2 weeks. What else are you?
I looked it up and it's three. It's a Friday.
Yeah.
That threw me off.
Yeah.
What's in your future? What's in your future, both personally, besides getting married, and also professionally, like some conferences, or what are you going to be at?
Yeah. So getting married, and then going to Costa Rica for a honeymoon. Woohoo!
Nice.
Yeah, and then coming back from Costa Rica immediately, being best man at my buddy's wedding on August 31st. Waking up the next morning at 6 a.m. and flying to PAX West.
I was going to say, that's right before PAX.
Yeah.
You
And
got a
then,
busy August, man.
Yeah, and then I'm going to TwitchCon, and I will likely be in a few publications coming up soon, so I'll look to my Twitter for those.
Yeah, Twitter is definitely the best way to follow all three of us outside of the show. This show actually, and it is worth pointing out, I did a quick command for Galen on my personal Twitter. We may have some personal changes going on in our respective schedules, so we may be looking for a new time for the show. But we, as always, give us the feedback, that let us know what times work well for you guys. We're always available on Vods to watch also. And thank you truly for supporting the show, being here, just watching us and asking questions. It helps us, not just from, we do this as marketing, but we also do it out of education, and because we want to see.
We like watching streams.
Yeah.
We're all here because we like watching streamers.
We want to see Twitch continue to succeed and to do so legally, right?
Yeah.
And the streamers to operate with as well as they can, because the better that you can operate your business, the longer that your business will be around, and that's what we all want, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Galen,
last little plug. I'd say last little plug.
Yeah.
Loco puts in a ton of time running StreamerSquare, and it's basically charity work on her part.
Yeah.
So if these kinds of things are valuable to you, she's got shirts and stuff like that up for StreamerSquare and the different shows and things like that. None of that money goes to us, nor do we want it to go to us.
Yeah.
She's someone who helps out a bunch on all of this kind of stuff. These pretty scenes that you see, the actual like channel setup, those kinds of things. So there you go.
Is there a link to the StreamerSquare
I have no idea.
DBH?
Yeah, there's a merch.
Okay.
Exclamation point merch. There you go.
All right, thank you. My name is Joel. I go by Shangri-La both on Twitch and Twitter. You can go ahead and follow me there. I do post a lot of articles and just like little random tidbits about legal and business issues. Thank you so much for being here. Follow us there. So we'll keep you posted there on the next possible episode. Like you shared, there's a lot of stuff going on. People getting married, people taking babies, people going on
taking babies,
taking care of babies. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't take babies, take care of babies, right? So, go ahead and follow us there. We'll keep you posted on when the next episode will be. All right. Thank you so much, guys. We'll talk to you next time. All right.
Bye.
Bye.